Welcome to week 10 of your Pharmacy Procedures 1 course. This week we are going to be covering chapter 11, which is all about measuring insulin dosages. Now I want to make sure that you understand that although there is no actual assignment for this week's chapter, these topics will be covered on the final exam. So please make sure that you go through and you understand everything there is to know about this chapter before you attempt the final exam. One other note about the final exam, you must have it completed by Thursday night. So you must make sure you get that done and completed by Thursday night, as I have to post grades on Friday. And one other note about that, if you have anything that you're missing other than a discussion post, you can still go back and submit those. So that means any assignment, any quiz that you have not completed, you can still do that before Thursday night. If you're not sure, just go in and check your grades. Anything with a 0 means you didn't turn it in. So as you're working through those things, if you have questions, make sure you reach out and let me know. But for this week, let's just look at some of the highlights about Chapter 11. This chapter is, like I said, all about insulin and how to measure insulin dosages. Before the 1980s, insulin was manufactured by using animal sources, specifically pork and things like that. But nowadays, all of the insulin that we have out there are produced from what we call recombinant DNA. And what that really just means is that we're making it in a lab. So when we talk about insulin now, it's not coming directly from an animal source, but it used to. There's 4 types of insulin that are commonly used in healthcare now. We have regular insulin, we have what's known as NPH insulin, we have long-acting, and we have rapid-acting. And I've got some pictures to show you some examples. These are just from a specific brand, but just know that there are other brands out there as well. But here you can see the regular insulin right here. So the R is the regular, the N is what we call the NPH. This one is Lantus, and it is one of the long-acting insulins. And this is Novolog. It is one of the rapid-acting insulins. So as you go through and you learn about these different types of insulins, all of them are going to have different characteristics. For example, regular insulin is clear in color. It can be short-acting or fast-acting. Typically, it starts working within 30 minutes, and it peaks at between 1 and 5 hours. And usually lasts about a total of 8 hours. Whereas NPH insulin is cloudy white in color. It's kind of in that intermediate stage as far as how quickly it acts. It starts anywhere between 1 and 4 hours, peaks between 4 and 12, and can last up to 24 hours or so. The rapid-acting insulins, like we said, there's lots of different ones. When you see this insulin aspart analog, that's just the actual generic name for it. And if you notice, I'm going to click back on this types of insulin slide. If you look here, right here, if you look, you can see that this one is, Novolog is one of those types of insulins. So it falls into this, this group, the rapid acting. And then the long acting, again, if you look back at those labels, even though those are brands, these are generics, and these will tell you, that they are long-acting insulin. So in our example, as far as the pictures go, the long-acting one was Lantus, the insulin glargine. And again, most of them, have different times, and there's a lot of things that go into determining what type of insulin a doctor is going to prescribe. One other important thing that you need to make sure you notice, especially when you look at the R and the N, you have to be very careful when you're looking at the labels. A lot of those vials are going to look very, very similar. Nowadays, we do have some insulins that come in insulin pens. We also have pre-filled self-injection syringes. And then, of course, the multiple dose vials, which is what we just looked at in those pictures. And then there's bags for infusion. When we talk about measuring of insulin, insulin is measured using units. Most insulin vials are U100, which means there's 100 units per milliliter. And then, of course, we're going to have syringes that go along with that. So the U100 syringes contain 100 units per milliliter. Anytime we're using an insulin dose greater than 50, we're going to use the U100. Anytime we're using less than 50, we're typically going to use the low dose syringe, or the 50U. When you look at the calibrations on the actual syringe, the U100s are calibrated for every 2 units, whereas the low dose, the 50, is calibrated for every unit. The only other thing I wanted to make sure to point out to you in this particular chapter, they're going to talk to you a little bit about how to combine insulins in the same syringe, because sometimes they do that. The one little acronym, or I guess you could, little mnemonic thing that I learned when I was studying to remember which one do you draw up first, is in this particular picture. So it's always clear before cloudy. So if you do the clear before the cloudy, you know that you're doing it correctly. And like I said, the book's going to go through and explain those steps in detail to you. But as long as you remember clear before cloudy, you should be good on that. If you have any questions this week before you start your final, please make sure you reach out and let me know. Have a great week.